In this video, we're doing section 2.6, the first example, how to build and analyze a function. Okay. So the first thing we are going to do in here is read the problem and try to see if you can graph this, even if this graph was not given to you. So just I'll explain, and if you have questions, please ask too. Okay. So the first thing I'm reading here is let P be a point. We are representing it by a coordinate x comma y on the graph y equals x squared minus 8. So the first step is graphing this graph y equals x squared minus 8. I hope you all would have noticed this is a graph of a square function transformed down 8 units, or in other words, it has a vertical shift down 8 units. Again, these are coming from the previous section, so I hope you can relate that to it. This function here is a quadratic function shifted down 8 units. And that's what I tried to graph here, like approximately we will assume that this coordinate is 0 comma negative 8. Okay, and the whole graph is shifted down 8 units. Okay, so after drawing that, the next step is I need to keep this point x comma y on the graph. And I picked the point to be on the graph in this quadrant because x and y can be positive. Okay, so I drew the quadratic graph, shifted down 8 units, and then I kept the point P on the graph, which I left it on the first quadrant. Now again, keep in mind, I can keep this P anywhere in here. I could have kept it on the second quadrant, third quadrant, or even the fourth quadrant. Now, I left it on the first quadrant because my x is positive and y is positive. Now, in this problem, like nowhere in the problem, it's telling that which quadrant P has to be. So we will keep it in the first quadrant to be on safe. So we don't have to deal with the negative symbols. Okay, now we'll come to A. So it's asking us to find the distance D from this point P to the origin 0. So we know at the origin the coordinates are 0, 0. So we need to find what this distance is. We need to find what that distance is. Okay, so I know to do this problem, I know the distance formula, and if you don't, go back and refer. Distance D is equal to square root of x2 minus x1 the whole squared plus y2 minus y1 the whole squared. It's actually coming from Pythagorean theorem. So we will label one of this point as x1, y1, the other point as x2, y2, and then I would plug it back into this equation. So I'll have D equals square root of x2 minus x1, so it's x minus 0 the whole squared plus y minus 0 the whole squared. So this is leading me to an equation D equals square root of x squared plus y squared. Okay, now coming back to this section, to this section A, if I reread this problem one more time, it's asking me to write the distance D from P to the origin 0 as a function of x. So in other words, what I can have is on the independent variable must be x. But when I look at this equation here, I have an x and I have this y in there, which is a variable too. Okay, we can fix this or solve this issue because of the information given in this problem that this point P is on this graph. Since this point P is sitting on this graph, for every value of x, to find the corresponding y value, I can use this equation. So instead of having this y, I can replace it by x squared minus 8. So that will make my equation, and I can write it as d of x because I'm going to have just one variable on the right hand side, square root of x squared plus, in the place of y, I'm putting x squared minus 8, the whole square. Now you can simplify this further. You can go ahead and FOIL this out and clean it up and write it, and I will be expecting to see that on the reading. Okay, and do the algebra and you will get an expression that would go x to the fourth and so on. Okay, now coming back to section B, I think B, you must be able to do B. It's asking what is d if x is 0. So you're looking for what d of 0 is in this equation that we found. Wherever you have x, put 0 and see what the value you would get. In C, it's asking to find what d of 1 is. I think that also you can do. Now comes the next portion, which is a graphing utility. So in a graphing calculator, you have to just plug in y1 is equal to this expression. Either what I do is normally I put this in so that if I did something wrong in my algebra, it will not show on that section of the problem too. So you can input that or whatever the expanded form that you have in here. Just put it in here, y1 equals. And the next one you can see is to keep the viewing window 0, x minimum 0. And why am I doing that? See, it's telling me in here, use a graphing utility to graph the function, and this is the condition that's telling x is greater than or equal to 0. So technically they don't want to see, they just want to see the x values greater than 0 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm keeping the x value greater than 0, and since my point P is up in the first quadrant, I'm going to keep my y also greater than 0. So, and therefore if you look at the graph, my x minimum in the calculator, which should be 0. So you can go x min 0. X max, I'm going to keep the standard viewing window, which is 10. Now x scale is also, I keep it 1. Y minimum, I keep it 0. Y max, I kept it 10. And y scale also, I kept it 1. By doing so, after I hit graph, the graph that you would see should be something like this. And you must see this graph in this viewing window because I can see it. I graphed it here. Okay. Now the next step to come to E. Now we are on the last section of the problem. For what value of x is d smallest? Now this is very important to understand. What is it asking? So smallest means it is the minimum point. So when I come to this graph here, I know the minimum point is this. So let me put a little dot. So this is my minimum value. So the question is asking me, what is the x value? The x value of it. So for this, you can use the minimum function in your calculator, like use second calc minimum, left bound, right bound, enter. And whatever you get here will be the minimum value. That is also something I would like to see. So x is approximately, just fill that up. Okay, I hope it helped. If there is any more questions on this, please let me know.